Welcome to the DATRE Transcripts. Transcript 015. Questions from George. John, George has the following question. I have mentioned this next item before, months ago. Seth material, chapter 18. All that is knows no other. This does not mean that there may not be more to know. It does not know whether or not other psychic gestalts like it may exist. It is not aware of them if they do exist. It is constantly searching. It knows that something else existed before its own primary dilemma when it could not express itself. DATRE, was that the end of the question? John, that was it. Basically, the question is, all that is knows no other. DATRE, all that is was a phrase that was used at the time. The reason it was used is to get away from the planetary God concept. In other words, God encompasses so much in so many individuals' minds, and basically, from what we see of the mass consciousness, the God that man upon the planet perceives is in the shape and form of a man. So, in other words, their concept of God is of a hierarchical nature, in that this man who is God is just a greater man, superhuman. Then his only son, that was the next in line. In other words, he was next to God, but it was still within a human context. All right. Now, in order to expand your awareness, all that is was a term that was used to describe something greater than that which you had previously known and accepted as what the highest was. All right? So all that is, we will explain this term, but that does not mean that's the final explanation. In other words, as the understanding and awareness grows into the frameworks, then we can expand on the frameworks as what you say time goes by. So anyway, all that is can be referred to as this universe. This universe, as we have stated before, contains all that you can see with your eyes or the instruments that you have upon your planet to be able to see. Shall we say sparkly stars in the sky? All right, now it is bigger than that, but that's all your instruments can perceive. So we will just say that everything that is known to you as far as your seeing eyes are concerned, we term that as the universe of all that is. Now, one of the most difficult concepts to get across, because it continually changes depending upon which context you are working within, number one is universes. Number two is realities. Because you only have one word, in other words, when a universe is referred to, it can mean many different things. In other words, when you say all that is, for the present time, we will refer to all that is as your universe in which your planet with other planets reside. That includes all that which you call space between your planets and your stars and whatever you have out there, suns and so forth. All right, that will include that whole mass. Now, all that is contains within it all that is. When that universe is formed, everything needed, speculated upon, any direction that you want to go with thought patterns, with technology, any of these areas, that is, everything there is contained within that. In other words, it's like putting a bowl of soup or stew in front of you. There are all kinds of bits and pieces within that soupy stew, all right? That's what you have. It's all contained within the bowl. All of that, the liquid, the round, all of these little pieces, that is what you would call the stuff that's around your planets. Now, and each one of those little bits and pieces, like potatoes and carrots and celery and all of those things, peas and corn and all that you put in a stewy soup, those are not only your planets, your suns, your moons, your stars. All that goes on is within that bowl, sitting in front of you. Now that is what we call all that is, the soupy stew. Now we will get more confusing. that which is your planet and your moon, and that what you call your sun that you can see, that is providing you with energy for you to use upon your planet, that whole thing is also a universe. It has been referred to as a universe, so that is where one of the discrepancies come in. Now let's talk about your universe. Your planet, your moon, and the sun that gives you the energy to keep your little planet going, all right? That whole solar system, let's put it that way, that whole thing, including the other planets, what you call your solar system, we will now refer to that as your universe, because that little section that you call your solar system contains more than you can see at the present time, but what you can see at the present time takes care of it. All right, now you have your own universe within a greater universe. Now this little universe that is contained within your solar system contains again all that is. Now go down one step further. Go down to your planet. Your planet and your planetary environment, just like you have your planet and your moon. Let's put that in a balloon. Blow up a balloon, a bubble, and stick your planet and your moon inside of that, because your sun is not inside of that. The sun works with all within your solar system. But inside this little bubble or balloon, or whatever you want to call it, here you are with your planet and your moon, because that moon is yours. It doesn't go around to any other planet because that is within your little bubble. There again, you have another all that is contained within that bubble, simply because everything that you can conceive of in any direction you wish to go with your multiple realities that exist within your planetary environment, and all of that is contained within that bubble. And that is also all that is. In other words, you cannot think a thought. You cannot put pieces of equipment together. You cannot do any medical research or any of that. The material for the thoughts and for the making of anything is all there. So there again, that is all that is. Now, we'll take the big universe again. Everything you can see, the whole big thing that is but one universe. Contained within that is all that I call the sub-universes, okay? Now, that is only one universe. Now we are getting into the mind-blowing, because if you can imagine that as being one universe, and there are other universes that are based on entirely different concepts that there are no words for in your language, but they do exist. They do exist. That is why we say you need the big picture to see the small, but you also need the small in order to be able to understand the big. So now we will try to be specific about the all that is concept, because we have not been asked this question before. But we will try and remember, when we are talking about the universe, that we will try and make it the big encompassing universe, the solar system universe or your planetary universe. So that may help in the understanding of that. Now, is that sufficient at the present time? John, I think that is. DATRE, all right, next question. John, you may have already answered the next question, I'm not sure. But continuing on, he says, Seth refers to all that is as our all that is, implying that there are other all that is. And I think you have taken care of that whole question. He goes on further and says, in fact, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of the confusion results from not fully identifying what we are referencing, i.e. physical reality, or the big overall view of all that is reality. You seem to be coming from a slightly different angle or perspective than most on this list, and that can lead to an adjustment in one's thinking or interpretations. DATRE, That is correct. That is what we have tried to explain, and it doesn't seem to be understood. We are coming from the big universe. If you leave this big bubble, then you go to an entirely different universe, entirely different concept, as you have with your planetary system. You have realities that are vague and cannot be used. You know you have been in another reality. You have experienced another reality, but you cannot explain another reality when you get back in here because the word constructs don't match. It is a feeling that you come back with. You know that you have experienced something entirely uniquely different, but there are no words to explain it. Now that is only the realities that you are capable of in the physical expression. Those are the only realities that you can begin to perceive. So the first thing you need to do is begin working with the self, the body, the brain computer that you have that processes everything, and your psyche, which tells you things and translates from the dream so that you can understand. So you see, you have a process that you need to go through. Now, when you begin to work with the psyche, and you can work so the brain understands the psyche, and the psyche, of course, understands the brain. But the trick, if you want to call it, is to get to connect with your psyche to the point that you are no longer in a system that you are working from simply brain capacity. Because when you are working with only brain capacity, you have difficulty in getting, shall we say, into other realities. Now, when you get to the point that you fully understand and have experienced these other realities that are in your planetary construct, that is at the point that you can leave this schoolroom. Sandbox 1, they have referred to it as. When you get to that point, your vibratory level of the physical being and of the psyche is to the point that even if you wanted to keep your feet on this planet, you could not, simply because your vibration can't stay here. In other words, let's give you an example. If that what you call the Jesus, right? If he were to be on this planet at this present time, like today, and say that he came down and stepped here on this planet, he would be totally lost. Because your vibration of your planet and your physical beings have changed so that he couldn't maintain any sort of stability. John, also I have heard it said that if we from this vantage point were to suddenly find ourselves in his time, in Jesus' time, we would likewise be unable to keep ourselves on the planet because our vibration would be so much higher than that energy of that time. DATRE, yes, because your planet and your whole planetary environment and your physical beings, your hologram was... The light was so dim in your hologram, your planetary vibration beat was so slow that in today's body you would go into that time frame to live in that time frame. That doesn't mean that you can't experience it, but to live in that time frame, you couldn't keep your feet on the ground because each generation has stepped up the vibration of not only the physical being, but also the mental capacity. Now, the planetary vibration is something else. What happens is, were you to have that one called Jesus come here, he couldn't function because he was used to a slower vibration. Now, what would happen is that he would get into a body in this framework that you are in at this present time, this timeline, and it would skew all over because he would not be able to control it because it works at such a fast rate of speed. You don't realize it, but that brain, your computer, is going so much faster. It's making connections so much faster. It's like trying to explain a television set. You are all familiar with the term. You turn them on and you turn them off. You have words that explain, well, it does this and it makes that connection and therefore, and the next thing. But the thing is, you don't know exactly how it works. You put names on it to define it, but the minute you flip that switch, how many things happen all at the same time? You get sound, you get color, you get motion, and you get a whole bunch of things all at the same time. But you are so used to it, you pay no attention to it. That is what happens with your brain. Your brain is like that. Your brain has been turned on at a different vibratory level. So that is one of the things that makes the difference. Did we cover the question, or did we get in what you call left field? John, I think we covered the question. Well, we went out to left field, went to home base, and covered all the plates. Okay. Now, his last question is, by the way, what do you or DATRE call this energy that is within everything and is the creative force behind DATRE, Seth, Seth 2, and beyond? DATRE, now you have no words. There again, it is energy. That is the closest thing that you can come to what it is. Let's put it this way. If you did not have a wire that electricity went through, you take the wire off, electricity is still there. It needs to have something put around it in order to let it go through. Understand? All right. That is, shall we say, pure energy. It's pure energy harnessed so that you can do something with it. Now get into the big universe. All that is within this whole great big universe, the only thing that is in that is energy. What we do is we reside within this field of energy. That is where we, shall we say, do our work. We work within the universal energy construct that is your universe. Now, there are those of us that have been in other universes, shall we say, a big universe, not a little one, but the big one. We have been in other ones, shall we say, experienced different constructs. There are those of us that have come from other universes into this universe to perform a service. We are the ones who do not and have not had a physical existence. In other words, you can say that we are born knowing. This that we do. You see, it takes more than just an empty sky to hold a universe together, to perform the things like, I hear a lawnmower, you have a lawnmower to cut grass, right? The man or lady pushing the lawnmower has a task in front of them to do. That is to mow the lawn. You don't ask many questions about mowing the lawn. You go up and down, up and down. Where you see a patch of grass sticking up higher than another patch of grass, then you cut that off. So, big deal. All right, to us, from our vantage point, we come into a universe to perform a task. Big deal. But it is not understood that it takes many, many to maintain a universal structure that works. So I know we are getting way out there, but you need to get to the point where you're searching and stretching. That is what happens. You get to the point of complacency, and you slide into thought patterns that are familiar and comfortable. What we are here for is to push you out of your rut. There is so much more to be understood, but you're in a planetary existence upon this planet. So let's bring you back here. Don't just sit here in complacency and say, well, that's all there is. No, that is not all there is as far as you as individuals are concerned. Get to know yourself. Get to know your body. Get to know your environment. Get to know what is going on. Get out into these other realities. And I will guarantee you, once you have gotten out into these other realities, and that's not just sitting and watching colors and all that sort of thing, when you get on these acid trips and everything. In fact, let me put in a little side note about acid trips. You know what you are seeing when you are on an acid trip? You are seeing your brain cells die. And the only cell that does not reproduce itself within the body is the brain cell. Once it is gone, it is gone. That is why some of your movie people that have been on what you call the drugs, if you have seen them on television, they are like a vegetable, because they have had so much acid that they can no longer function. They talk with slurred talking, their tongue doesn't work, their brain, they have to ask them little baby questions because their brain cannot compute anymore. So when you see all these beautiful colors and you see everything out of context, what you're seeing, the colors are nothing more than brain cells dying. If that is of interest to you, that's fine. But anyway, I had to throw that in because we happen to get in that direction. Yes? John, can I ask a question in that regard? Are you including in that? You specifically mentioned acid, which is LSD in our terms. Does that also include all of the hallucinogenic drugs, cocaine, and all that kind of DATRE? Hallucinogenic drugs is a good term to use because when you see these bright lights and you see the colors and you see everything in a magnified way, in other words, you see things that got sparkly stuff around them, and you look at things and they are entirely different. That's hallucination. Hallucination is the dying of brain cells. That's what makes it so sharp. Now, I can guarantee you one thing. If you think hallucinatory drugs are exciting, forget it. That is but a little baby's playing with a sparkler. Why don't you get out to the point where you have these big things going up in the air and bursting into great magnitude of fireworks, where they have those great big balls that you see? That's going into a reality. If you are satisfied with sitting with a baby sparkler, then do your drugs. If you want to get out and see the big thing, then learn to go into your other realities. Now, have we answered the question? John, I think you have. DATRE. All right. We thank you. We have enjoyed being with you, and we will see you very soon again. We are DATRE. Goodbye.